Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. I expected this week to be messier than it ultimately is, mostly because about half the predicted disruptions didn't really happen. Now granted, part of this was me being prepared to cover Rod Wave anyway. He's literally in the next episode of On the Pulse on my main channel, which is going to drop in a day or two. But another part was that he was the only album bomb that really hit the Hot 100, and I gotta admit, I was expecting a little bit more. Yeah, granted, he's not even the biggest story this week. That's in our top 10, and another debut at number 1, Montero, Call Me By Your Name by Lil Nas X. Now, I've got opinions on the song that'll come much later, but I will say that Lil Nas X did deliver a masterclass in outrage marketing, which is different than trolling, but can look the same depending on how much you bought into him as an artist. And while I was initially convinced he might be a quick 2 or 3 hit wonder, this does prove he's got some staying power. The sales are good, the streaming and YouTube are just absolutely ridiculous, but he doesn't have radio at the moment. And how long this song will stick around where it is really is dependent on how much traction his label will allow him to get on the radio. In this case, you can at least understand why Peaches by Justin Bieber featuring Daniel Caesar and Giveon has some sustained traction at number 2. Because even as the sales are down, streaming and a really big radio push, they're gonna make this a consistent hit. Now this makes things a bit awkward for Leave the Door Open by Silk Sonic, because while the sales are solid and the radio growth is just wild, it did take a hit on streaming, and that might be a tougher margin for a song like this to make up beyond number 3. And on that note, Up by Cardi B is at number 4, where she saw hits in both the sales and streaming, and the radio contraction is not really consistent. I don't know when that album is coming, but that could be a problem in the next month or two if we don't get something here. Then we got Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo at number 5. It might rule the radio, but it is definitely on the downswing. And Save Your Tears by The Weeknd at number 6, which has another wind on the radio, but that's not showing up in any other channel. Then we got Levitating by Dua Lipa featuring DaBaby at number 7, mostly courtesy of a nice streaming boost given the airplay inconsistency, but it likely held its spot because Blinding Lights by The Weeknd is finally an outright collapse down to number 8. Then in the one indication of the album impact, we saw Mood by 24K Golden featuring Ian Dior rising up to number 9. It Won't Last, and What You Know About Love by Pop Smoke hold on at number 10, even as its radio success seems to be evaporating, and that's pretty much all it's got. And on that note, our losers and dropouts. Now, given that it's an album bomb week again, we did have a few bigger ones. Cut short from the year-end list likely, we've got Beers and Sunshine by Darius Rucker, Sand in My Boots by Morgan Wallen, and maybe Good Time by Nico Moon. I can hope. I mean, it's right on the border, as it looks right now, could fall either way. But then clinching its spot, there's Better Together by Luke Combs. And while we got a decent number of losers, most of these can be linked to either ongoing collapses or project releases that are fading naturally. In the former category, Girl Like Me by the Black Eyed Peas and Shakira hit 100, Bust It by Erica Banks dropped to 87, Real As It Gets by Lil Baby and ESTG slid down to 82, Monsters by All Time Low featuring Black Bear and Demi Lovato hit 80, and Lemon Pepper Freestyle by Drake and Rick Ross fell down to 70. You know, you can probably tack on Wants and Needs with a Lil Baby to 34 in that camp as well. Then we had Justin Bieber falling back naturally from his album bomb. Anyone went down to 36, Hold On's at 46, and As I Am with Khalid went down to 72. But for the rest, Headshot by Lil TJ, Polo G, and 504 fell off the debut to 68. Just the Way by Parmalee and Blanco Brown fell down to 60 as country radio rotates it out. Probably the same for Down to 1 by Luke Bryan down to 74. And probably true for all formats with Body by Megan Thee Stallion at 81. And that leaves The Business by Tiesto at 86, just not catching on. Kind of a shame, I still kind of like that song. Now, as expected, we didn't get much in the way of gains or returns. In the latter category, Clouds by NF is back at 93, likely due to the mixtape, and Hellcats and Trackhawks by Lil Durk got a music video, so it's back at 76. But the only 2 gains we got were from Rod Wave this week, with Street Runner surging up to 16 and Tombstone up to 11. That's considerably bigger than I was expecting. I mean, they are the 2 best songs from the album, but still. But given that he's also very much in album bomb territory, here here are the songs that fell below the top 40 and are neither the best nor the worst of this week. Sneaky Links at 98, What's Love at 94, very close to the dishonorable mention with that one, not gonna lie. Shock the World at 96, OMDB at 89, How the Game Go at 88, Pillz and Billz at 85, All I Got at 71, nearly honorable mention there, Blame on You at 65, Gone Till November at 61, and SoulFly at 55. But for the rest here, well, not number 69, Big Purr by Leray and Pooh, Shiesty.
Playing the cat while I switch gears. You keep on running from these backs, I pull them tracks out, bitch, come here.
Baby, after we fuck, we ain't gon' talk about Leave right there. Tell your bitch she dead, can't come back here.
Okay, I get why this exists. They're not on the same label, but they might share some management or the connection with Lil Durk, and why not have two up-and-coming artists work together? That makes sense, right? Well, if this is the best that they can pull together, I'm thinking it might have been a mistake all the way down. For starters, why are we getting all these dark pianos and strings that are trying to sound so ominous, especially for a song that leans so heavily on sexual references? I guess it might be implying rough or angry sex, but for a song like that to work, it relies on there being chemistry or credible tension between the two acts, and neither of them deliver here. Both just sound actively disinterested, but more distractingly, neither of them are riding the hook all that well. I might get it with Pooh Shiesty doing his bargain barrel Gucci Mane impression, but what's Leray's excuse? She's shown that she's got a lighter touch than this, and she just is falling off the beat. Again, she's proven that the whole Playboy Cardi thing she's doing can work for me, and she's got the charisma to make a song like this maybe work, but I gotta be honest, it's a real dud for me. Pass. Number 63, Don't Forget by Rod Wave.
If you can't feel my pain, well, this ain't for you anyway.
So you might be surprised that I'm not really covering many of the new Rod Wave songs this week. Honestly, even without the album bomb rules, there's just not much to say about a good formula repeated a few too many times, especially when the singles really are the best songs on the album. But if I were to find a third option, it would probably be with this, leading off with a sample from the late Pimp C that Benny the Butcher later sampled on a song of his own, with a sharper guitar line and better production overall in terms of balancing out the trap percussion. More importantly, it feels like a fully composed song, with the spacing of the single verse, the interludes, and all the samples giving Rod Wave the structure to swing around a pretty solid hook multiple times, especially as he can then explore the weird, discombobulated feeling of them being alienated from a lot of his mainstream industry success as he tries to rep his hood, a hood that will not rep him back or recognize his grind, especially with the struggle to say something real and not just be a cartoon caricature for the industry to use and abuse. There's a real frustration and loneliness to the song that Rod Wave can really sell with a slightly gruffer delivery, and while I think the next step for him will be to drill a little deeper into the complexity of this scene and this emotion, there is still some resonance that comes through really effectively. So yeah, again, really good song, hope of the non-hits, this sticks around. Number 51, You All Over Me, Taylor's version, From the Vault by Taylor Swift featuring Maren Morris.
Freedom gets you clean. I've still got you all over me.
Not gonna mince words, this was the part of Taylor Swift re-recording old material that worried me a little bit. Mostly because while the old hits had some nostalgic charm, these could just wind up as B-sides that are more curiosity and Easter eggs for the die-hard fans, rather than songs that really held up. Now this was a song cut from Fearless, but to realize it, she did get Maren Morris for backing support and Aaron Dessner of The National co-producing, so maybe it could be interesting to say the least. And you know, maybe interesting's the wrong word, because while it is good, it is absolutely a B-side. I completely get why this got cut. Now, to Taylor Swift's credit, it is credible, and I reckon that this sounds better now than it would have in 2008. She can sound wiser and more world-weary. Aaron Dessner's soft-focused percussion and gentle touches of the country instrumentation feels very warm and subtle. The harmonica is left just ragged enough to be a nice touch, and I like the content of her reflecting on an ex that she's very much not over and has left a pretty sizable mark on her life. That being said, why is Maren Morris even here? There's no interplay, their vocal tones don't really mesh, and I don't want to call this queerbaiting because I don't know her own situation, but it's a charge that's been leveled before. The fan base picked up on it pretty fast. This was from an era where her material was predominantly autobiographical, and again, why else is Maren Morris even here? Again, it is still good, but it does feel like a B-side, so not something I'm likely to revisit. If you're a fan though, you'll probably enjoy it. Number 49, Hard for the Next by Moneybagg Yo and Future.
Got her cooking in the crib without no panties. I just jumped off the Leray like a savage.
Look, we don't have to keep on making Moneybagg Yo a thing. When he's not unlikable, he's tedious. And pairing him with Future at this point is both obvious and just did not bode well for this. Now, to their credit, it's not as bad as I was expecting. Obviously, I'm not a fan of the Chipmunk Genuine sample, but it is a good melodic foundation for this sort of trap. Although why they kept bringing it back with more grain on the pickup, I've got no idea. And Moneybagg Yo only has the bad line, "Go ape shit about you, primate," as if we need bad hashtag rep to come back. But at least across his verse, he sounds a bit more interested in the woman he's courting. My problem here is with Future. You don't come across all that debonair when you jump into women's lives, buy them all sorts of expensive brands, and then just ghost them after sex. Especially when you sound so bored doing it, and you already have 7 kids by 6 different women. I don't know, to me the entire song is about him building toxic, increasingly one-sided relationships wherever he goes, and reality has proven that it's not really working all that great for him, especially as this is more of his song than Moneybagg Yo's, and we've heard this routine from Future so many times before. If anything, it's just kind of generic by this point. It might not be as bad as I was expecting, but it's not good either. Number 22, Richer by Rod Wave featuring Polo G. Okay, I hate to spoil a point I'm gonna make when I review the album, but it needs to be highlighted here. You got your one collaboration on your entire project. It's bound to debut well because of Polo G, and yet it's one of the weakest songs on the album? The bass swamps out the mix, the percussion sounds cheap as all hell, the vocal blending is full of some obvious punch-ins, the fidelity doesn't match in between the verses here, and when it comes to the content, it's Rags to Riches Part 2, with a more annoying hook and proof that when Polo G doesn't take the extra step in refining his content, he is so frustratingly generic. If I were to guess with this, it was either an old song cobbled together in post for this album to have some sort of featuring credit, or nobody put much effort into it because it was bound to be a hit on name alone. Hell, it might be some of both. But either way, what a disappointment. This could have been great instead of mid. At best. And finally, number 1, Montero, Call Me By Your Name by Lil Nas X.
When you want, call me when you need, call me out by your name, I'll be on the way like
So I'm not really going to talk much about the video here. At this point of the hype and backlash cycle, we've seen the most mimetic moments, and to deconstruct the blend of mythological, religious, and sexual iconography would require a decent bit for me to work through. I do think the backlash was massively overblown though, given that Christian conservatives seem to completely miss how the subtext of the video was in being rejected from their kingdom because of his sexuality. He was then going to claim it and his agency by any means necessary, and then kill that devil that scandalizes them so. Which, you know what, is a parallel, but not really the same thing thematically that FKA Twigs was doing with her pole dancing around Magdalene, so I'm happy that did not blow up into a thing. They're both on good terms. I like that. That being said, I am kind of amused by how over the top the presentation of everything here is in comparison with the song, which kind of falls into the line of a snarky trap ditty, where he's chasing a guy who might be disinterested or out of his league, or hiding the truth about his affection for Lil Nas X. And the ride charm to the song, it's certainly there, with a lot of charisma, the swampy vocal blending, the hand claps, and the touches of Spanish guitar. I don't know, it's good, but it might take a little bit to fully grow for me, and I gotta wonder how much of the video was built to oversell a song that does feel a little bit thin, which funnily enough has been my issue with Lil Nas X since the very beginning. So it's still good though, I can acknowledge that. I do appreciate the controversy, but that does take us to our best and worst of the week. And since we only got 6 songs here, I'm gonna skip out on the honorable and dishonorable mentions. Between certain ties, I would wind up selecting every song, and that just kind of feels weird. So best is gonna go to Rod Wave for Don't Forget. Don't worry, Lil Nas X Demons, I'm in that clique too. I'm sure Montero will grow on me a little bit, it's just not there yet. And worst is going to Big Purr by Leray and Pooh Shiesty, where Leray really needs to find management that will not lump her into mediocre trend chasing and hopefully a better career than her father had. Next week, I think it's just gonna be Fallout, because Demi Lovato is not likely to get an album bomb. We will just have to see. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.